nations here, and he's going to talk with us in this segment about America's godly heritage. Pastor Mark.
Yeah, well, my journey really went to another level in 2008, and I decided I was going to study for myself our nation's history. Now, that sounds pretty simple, except we have this thing called deconstruction, and people have been very intentional in taking out certain parts of our Christian and godly heritage. So a book that really changed my life is called The Light and the Glory, written a very long time ago, and then there was kind of an edition, re-edit, 2009, by Peter Marshall. And I was astounded at our nation's history and the godly heritage that we have. Patrick Henry said this: "It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation, the United States of America, was founded not by religionists, but by Christians. Not on religions, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ." And so some people say, what is the church doing involved in politics? Well, here's the problem. And I say this: it's entirely possible for me to get in the pulpit and be political and not biblical, but it is impossible for me to be biblical and not touch politics. The problem is politics have become theological, and they start redefining marriage and talking about gender, and then our freedom of religion goes from there. But even Dwight Eisenhower said the founding fathers, they had to refer to the creator in order to make their revolutionary experiment make sense, because this was the great experiment. And George Washington, really a father in our nation, first president, said it's impossible to rightly govern a nation without God. Now, a lot of us as Americans think that America is the rule, that every place in the world. I just got back from Nigeria last week, and it would do every American to get out of this country and realize America is blessed above all nations on the earth. Well, that's Psalm 33, verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he has chosen as his inheritance. Well, we've forgotten that, Haim, and we don't realize that if there were no Bible, there could be no America. John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, said the highest glory of the American Revolution was this: it connected in one indissoluble bond the principles of civil government with the principles of Christianity. And I sat one time with a man that ran for a very high office, and I asked him if he knew that our three branches of government came out of Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 22. And he looked at me and he had no idea. And so one of the things that we realize is we don't know who we are in America. We don't know our history. And Woodrow Wilson said it this way, and it sums it up: a nation which does not remember what it was yesterday does not know what it is today, nor what it is trying to do. We're trying to do a futile thing if we do not know where we came from or what we may have been about. And the way I've said it, hon, we're suffering from national Alzheimer's. We don't know who we are or where we came from. And when your memory goes, you start damaging yourself. That's what's going on in America right now. And it's going to take divine intervention. We are in a great awakening right now. I just hope we wake up before it's too late and that we suffer untold irreparable damage.
We need to know our history. That's why those who seek to destroy a nation seek to have us forget our history or rewrite our history. We need to know. That's what, this is conservative radio. It's about conserving. We can be progressive, we can move forward with technology and everything else, but the core values that built this nation and made it great are the ones that we need to bring it back. And the question is, are you, as a person of faith or not of faith, willing to do what it takes, and are you willing to vote? Well, when we come back, we'll continue with Pastor Mark Cowart here on The Peak. I would think so. This is just a 2-minute break, so we're back pretty soon.
Okay.
So we're on page 4, on segment 4, with those 4 questions, and have about 2 to 3 minutes an answer.
his country's retaliation for a recent Iranian missile attack will be
Oh,
regional
these
and
are good.
surprising. The warning on Wednesday came as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu
This is good.
and President Joe Biden held their first call in 7 weeks. On Wall Street,
It's so simple. We need help misunderstanding it. The problem is we've had a lot of help misunderstanding.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying, with me, I did the voter guide thing and that, but it was still journalistic. The voter guide isn't political. It's how can I get the information, so it's always, because that's my mountain, is, the media. So I looked around, nobody was doing this. Jeff Crank wasn't on the air anymore. Jeff's become a friend and said, I had a feeling when God sent us here that I was going to be that voice. It was a weird thing to think I'm going to go to a new place and be that, but here we end up, with a mic and a radio station, and it's how we worked it out. But my goal is to try to give as many people a voice as possible. If we can all be out there reporting, I was thinking if we had 100 volunteers, we'd have like the biggest newsroom ever, just covering the Pikes Peak region. We could bring transparency to everything, shine light everywhere.
Freedom of the press was the wisdom of God through our founders, and we know what's valuable by what they go
But
after.
unfortunately, the businesses bought it and paid for it. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. Happy to have you joining us here as we are saying the quiet stuff out loud regarding the church and elections. And as we mentioned throughout the program, George Barna is a Christian pollster for decades, just came out with a report that about 50% of Christians in America are not planning to vote for a variety of reasons. And what does that mean for our nation? Well, it seems pretty dire. If any level of the electorate checks out at that level, that we're not properly getting our representation. And so we here at the Peak encourage you, no matter who you are, to be involved in the process. And so we're today have Pastor Mark Cowart, Senior Pastor of Church for All Nations. That is what they would call a politically active church. They have a culture impact team there that does a lot around the elections. And in fact, tonight at CFAN at their North Campus off Powers in Dublin area is from 7 to 8:30, Steve Schleicher, who is our county clerk who oversees the elections. And he's going to be there talking about election integrity tonight at CFAN. ChurchForAllNations.com is the website for everything CFAN. So Pastor Mark, when did you, because we talked about in this what George Barna has found out is because pastors have checked out, they're not teaching their flock about civic engagement, about elections, not encouraging that. There are a lot of reasons that have come about, but when did you come to understand as a pastor that the church needed to be involved in this governmental realm, that it was inseparable, as you said in the previous segment?
Yeah, well, it really started in 2008, but a tipping point happened in 2012. I started doing a series called America the Beautiful. And I would start taking different segments. So that particular time I had a former terrorist, Kamal Salim, used to be a member of our church.
He was on one of my programs.
Oh,
a couple
okay,
weeks ago
yeah.
when he was in
Oh,
town.
okay, yeah, exactly. He's quite a testimony there. And then, of course, so he was a former terrorist. Then I had General Jerry Boykin, counter-terrorist, and quite a prestigious 36 and a half years in the military, founding member of Delta Force. And so I had those two, and I had General Boykin speaking, and he began to talk about a group of pastors, and they started in 2008. Alliance Defending Freedom said, look, this is unconstitutional that you as a pastor cannot speak. We used to have election sermons in this country. And something happened in July of 1954. LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, powerful Texas senator, came up with what's called the Johnson Amendment. He didn't like people questioning him. They formed a nonprofit. They thought he was soft on communism. So he had the Johnson Amendment, slipped down on the House floor, no review, and they passed it. It really wasn't even intended for churches, but over the years, and that was really when the noose got slipped around the pulpits of the church. And so I thought that I couldn't speak up.
And this is tied into 501c3 and the IRS and this threat of losing a nonprofit status.
Exactly.
Which is really a fog over the church, and it's not even accurate, and it's not happened at all.
No, not only that, Alliance Defending Freedom, a tremendous organization with over 3,000 attorneys that will do work pro bono to defend churches and Christians whose religious freedoms have been violated. They basically will defend you, but they started gathering this group of pastors. They said, send your notes to the IRS, tell them what you're going to preach on, who you're going to talk about should be elected, all these things. And so they would mail it to the IRS, and this group began to grow from 33 to 80 to 101. The year that I spoke out was 2012. Over 1,200 spoke out. And that's when I began to see that a lot of things I had thought and assumed as a pastor were untrue, and they were unconstitutional. And it overturned over 150 years of history, because pastors used to get up and speak freely about the moral qualifications of candidates and what the issues were. So that all began for me in 2012. It was no small stir. Media showed up. Quite honestly, my knees were knocking. I was nervous, but I found out that that's where the power is, to empower the people, the sheep, the congregation. Like this document behind me where it says, we the people, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land.
Yeah.
And that's when it began for me and went really to a whole new level in 2012.
Okay, so other than this Johnson Amendment is there, but really, if pastors would be bold for preaching the word, that shouldn't have influence. They shouldn't, in my opinion, care about the government. Where do you think how did we get to this point over the years where now pastors basically, they're saying separation of church and state, I can't do this, or they tend to say, as Eric Metaxas has pointed out, I'm just preaching the gospel, so I'm out of this. When did we get to this point where now 50% of Christians aren't planning to vote? When did the pastors check out?
Well, I think life has been so easy for us here in America, we really don't know what persecution is. And you've probably heard of the life cycle of a nation, how you go from bondage to freedom, and then you go all the way back around, you get up to prosperity, and then you get into lethargy and complacency, back into bondage. And so just like laws of nature have cycles and seasons, we're in a season where we've had it so good, we've become lukewarm. We fell asleep. While we fell asleep, the enemy came in and sowed tares. And really, we don't know the history of our nation concerning churches, and we don't know the purpose of the church. We were talking about this before. I believe churches at large have become adult daycare centers. We're not to be a luxury ship, we're to be a battleship. Thomas Jefferson said, the boisterous sea of liberty is never without a wave, and tyranny is always coming at us. We're experiencing it, however, at a whole new level right now, and we'll either wake up voluntarily or involuntarily when we realize, and we're seeing it right now, where pastors have been arrested and locked up and told what they can preach and what they can't preach. I mean, tyranny is all around us right now, and hopefully we'll wake up before we get to a place where we can't repair the damage.
Yeah, I really thought with COVID and the churches getting shut down, and then with what this administration was doing, that Americans would wake up, and certainly the people who listen to the station most likely have or are waking up. But as I look around the landscape, it doesn't see that, and George Barna actually predicted that Kamala Harris is going to win because of this very point, that the churches are asleep, that we're not going to vote, and and we're going to have to deal with another 4 years of this. And as Elon Musk is saying, if this election could be pivotal in having any more elections. There's all this that's out there about, separation of church and state, or we should just preach the gospel and stay out. What do you say to Christians and to pastors regarding engaging in the governmental realm while not making it a religion, which can be hard,
Well,
and a messianic figure, to elect a messianic figure, to save us.
Well, Jesus said it this way, Matthew 5:13, you're the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its savor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing. I call them good for nothing Christians that don't speak up and don't speak out. We can never give up. You know, we recently had Tim Barton. Well, it's been a little bit, but if you go back and look at our nation's history, we lost the majority of battles. Somewhere around 200 overall in the War for Independence. George Washington lost the majority of his battles. So we need to do everything we can in our power, while at the same time trusting God to do what we cannot do. He will never do for us what we can only do for ourselves, and he won't expect us to do what only he can do. So I am the eternal optimist. I'm going to fight, fight, fight to the end. Speak up, speak out, never give up, never give in. And so we need to be speaking. For God's sake, people need to vote. This is so discouraging that many people are that weak that they would say, I'm just not going to vote. And what was it, 101 million, I believe. Well, good gracious, if they would step up and vote, there would be a tipping point there that with all of the dishonesty that goes on around elections, it would put us in the place of victory. And so we've got to do everything we can to stir ourselves up and stir others up.
Well, let's talk about stirring the pastors up in this last, we have a couple minutes left here. You know, it's intimidating because we say, well, the pastor knows better, or he's going to choose the sermon. But, the pastor is one of us. We're supposed to submit one to another. He's serving in a capacity at the church. What's a good way to approach a pastor in a respectful way, but say, brother, please speak on these issues, please, before it's too late. How can we the people, we the church, come to our pastors and influence them rather than it just being this one direction?
Yeah, one of the things that I always encourage, I am a pastor. I love pastors, and the expectations on a pastor are so high. But I say approach him with grace and truth. Jesus Christ, full of grace and truth. Don't go in there and knock him in the head with a baseball bat of truth, but go in with grace, but at the same time truth. And one thing, you need to be praying for your pastors. It's easy to criticize people, but how much have people been praying for them? Smite the shepherd and you scatter the flock. I'm going to tell you.
Right, you're under attack all the time.
All the time. Pastors are under incredible pressure. So they need our prayers, but they also have a responsibility to be strong in the Lord. And I would say this to pastors: if you'll be intimate with God, then people won't intimidate you. But if you're intimidated by men, I would check my intimacy with God and draw near to the Lord, and he'll draw near to you.
Amen. Well, you're listening to The Peak on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. We're talking about Christians and elections and bad news that's out there, but what can we still do? The ballots arrive Monday the 14th. What can we still do? Is it too late in our region, in this country? But let's focus on our region. When we come back with Pastor Mark Cowart, Senior Pastor of Church for All Nations, we're going to be telling you things, yes, you can still do, because the ballots have not been cast yet here in our region. There is still time, and there is still hope. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and we'll be right back on The Peak. I was gonna mention Steve Schleicher again, but I'll do it in the next segment.
Oh,
We're still rolling?
Yeah. You are going to want to, when you're done, remember to switch that.
Yeah,
Also
you did
going-
not show me, what do I have to do? I have to hit KGFT?
KGFT, yeah. From
Okay.
then. And you're going to want to stop the live stream unless you want the live stream to continue with
No.
your partners.
Uh,
So that's important. You got to reach over
okay.
and
Okay,
actually hit. You got to be on the Riverside tab. So
okay,
I guess I'll leave it on this tab. You won't know if it stops
Okay.
going to Facebook, but you got to be on this tab and then stop that. I'll stop the live stream
okay,
to
okay,
both YouTube.
okay.
So
Well,
I'll
try
say
to
it on
remember
there.
that, but I'm
So
only
so
gonna
quick.
have like 10 seconds.
Right, and I can't be in here because I have to be there.
No, I know.
So
We're working it tight today.
I can ask James to.
I gave you a script, right?
I don't think
Did I give it? No? I
partnership.
thought I did, because I have marks in mine here. I was gonna hand it to him.
Maybe you
Check
get
in
James.
there. I may have left it in there. No, I think
Okay.
okay, we got 2 minutes. Okay.
We're good. You have your info for the gym rant and everything, right? Timing?
No, did he give me, I didn't get a timing.
Okay.
So
I have to throw to a pre-recorded segment for the rant, so they have to tell me when I have to be out. So this is gonna be 5 minutes. This is page 5, segment 5. What can we still do?
5 minutes.
5 minutes even, okay.
Ah, there we go.
So we have to be out, because I have to throw to something he can't alter because it's pre-recorded. But I will say, about 4.5 in, I'll say thank you to you. And then,
Yeah, you just tell
then I
me
can
what
finish, then I
to
can
do.
finish well, yeah, I'll say, at the end of this next segment, before I go to Jim, I'll thank you for being on the show, so we'll say goodbye to you. And then we go to commercial after Jim, and then I come back and just have like a 2-minute close. And then we go right into the next show,
Okay.
so. Okay, we got 30 seconds.
And is this the one next, more Christian audience?
Yeah, when we're done with the peak, yeah, that's on the Word, the Bible teaching.
Okay.
So you can just, same thing, different audience, so however you want to adjust for that. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. We are spending this hour talking about the church and elections, Christians and elections, and wanting to be encouraging, to say nobody, I don't think anybody, I vehemently disagree with you. I think that if you're a citizen of this country, you should vote. You should vote once. You should vote in one place. I believe it should be one day, where we have there's a lot of opportunity for fraud in the system, but that's another show to talk about. We have Pastor Mark Cowart, Senior Pastor of Church for All Nations, and I want to mention again that tonight at CFAN North Campus, Steve Schleicher, our county clerk here in El Paso County, 7 to 8:30, talking about election integrity. I know Steve, and he's done a lot to try to clean things up and to try to bring, will that make a difference? We'll see, but at least here in our county, that's all you can do, is try to make a difference here at home, in our county, in your house, in your county. So, in this final segment, I always like to do, I call the story arc. When we come up here around to the end of the show, no matter how depressing or dark it may have been or discouraging, we still need to do something. So in this segment, what can we still do? The ballots are coming. People are going to start turning them in. Is there any time to still have influence? I would say yes. Never give in, never surrender, as Mark said. So, Mark, what are some suggestions you can give to our listeners about what can we still do over the next couple of weeks while people are deciding how to mark their ballots?
Well, one thing to remember, we can't do everything, but we can do something. So that's what we ought to focus on. And we talked about this a little while ago. We have a sphere of influence. All of us do. And we need to speak into that sphere of influence. We have family, we have neighbors, we have co-workers, we have fellow church members if you happen to go to church.
Just because the pastor won't talk about it, you can still do it.
Oh my!
That's what the lobby's for.
Yeah, and if you are a believer, you need to be praying. Now at Church for All Nations, trust me, we have amped up prayer so drastically. Intense prayer. We are really praying. And also, we need to remember our past. This is where our history would come in. If you take the word history and you break it down, it's his story. And so America is a nation that is a miracle nation. We shouldn't even be in existence. It was absolute absurdity for these 13 little colonies to take on the great British Empire on which the sun never set. There were divine interventions of the Lord, and he sometimes altered weather and caused the enemy to be confused. He intervened. In fact, our good friend Bill Federer has a series of books called Miracles in American History. So be encouraged. Don't if you're not careful, you'll get discouraged and depressed out of your mind, and you've got to stay focused on the Lord in this. So reach out to your sphere of influence. If you have a pastor, pray for him, and then approach him with grace and truth to speak up about these issues, because everybody thinks it's political. Actually, these are moral issues.
Social and moral, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're biblical issues. And so I encourage you to do that. But really important, get informed. Get these voter guides and help hand them out. Ask people if they have questions that maybe you could help answer. Know what the balloted initiatives really are. Sometimes they word these things that are so confusing. So make sure that you understand. And then I see you've got some websites where they get those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we say get informed and vote your values, that's really important. A lot of times we've had conservatives tend to not vote if they don't get some level of information. So I help put out a voter guide, churchvoterguides.org. This coming Sunday the 13th, it will be online. And then truthandliberty.net has another voter guide. Go on there and click the tab for Colorado elections and get their voter guide there. Get informed, vote your values. Pastor Mark Cowart, Senior Pastor of Church for All Nations, thanks so much for being on the Peak.
Great being with you.
So what do we do here, folks? Are we going to give up? Are we going to check out? Or are we going to press in and do what we can? I want to encourage you to do that, and that means speaking to people and speak to your pastor. Encourage your pastor. Say, Pastor, especially on this 79, this thing of constitutional abortion, that's a big deal. And if he's not talking about anything, he should be talking about that, in my opinion. Well, if someone who doesn't hold back is Jim Miller and the Peak Rants.
So I will say this. I think the church's stance, a lot of these preachers, pastors, whoever's the lead of the congregation, congregations, if you will, need to take more of a definitive stance of what the morals, values, ethics, and beliefs they have politically stand. Who aligns, who doesn't align with that. More of a don't stand there and just go with your heart, this and that. For some people that are supposed to be leaders of the community that always tell everybody how to live, this is the one time where they kind of just skirt around and don't want to be definitive or anything. That's not the way you be. You know why? Because if you do that, you start becoming complacent. If you become complacent, now you're complicit to all the issues and all the wrongs. Now you're making it worse instead of making it better. You want it better, be better. Take a stance, say your opinion, say who you think stands and aligns with the best with the morals, values, and ethics, or even allowing any of the religions to practice without encouragement. Any of that stuff. Say something, do something. Look at the candidates, look at the topics, look at the different agendas, look at all this stuff, and actually have good, open, true, uncomfortable discussions during church. Have them. It is fine. You know, things get better. You deal with all the uncomfortable, terrible stuff. It becomes a lot better world. It is fine. You're a church leader. You're supposed to be a leader of the community. Have the uncomfortable conversations. Take a stance. Take it in. Pick a candidate. Pick a topic. Pick into this stuff and start taking a bit of a stance on it. You're not representing the people or helping your community. Want it better, be better. I'm Jim Miller. I'm just a guy who listens to the Peak on AM 1460 and 101.1
When I saw him at the forums, mayoral forums, I'm just a guy, and I said, this guy's radio gold. I gotta get him on the radio. So he's been with us since the beginning, and he's great. He's becoming more and more polished. He's becoming a voice in the community. And so we're actually doing He's coming in on Friday. We decided because we talked about ballot initiatives last. He did rants. He did these mini rants on ballot initiatives.
You're good,
Yeah,
water.
bring more water. Yeah.
Water would be great.
Water,
Thank
and
you.
Yeah. Grab my water glass off my table.
All right,
bring
and
it to
remember,
me. Yeah.
stopping the recording and.
Yeah, we're gonna have about a few seconds to do that. We're going to do, I'm gonna come in here on Friday and we're gonna go through every ballot initiative and he's gonna rant on it. And we're coming out with Jim Miller's Just a Guide instead of Just a Guy, because he goes by Just a Guy. So we're gonna put it in shorts and bring some humor into the election cycle and put it out there. But he has a position on each of these that's refreshing.
Wow.
Because he's not a believer. He's a family man,
What does he
conservative.
do?
A lot of things. He was a Marine. He's a mechanic. He has a vending machine business. He's a working guy. Overtaxed, overworked, He's just the working man. He's the common guy, unfiltered. He's been great. He's become a great friend, and he's just straightforward. And he ran for mayor because of his pet issue is the pedophiles and the rapists and all these things going on. And he had 4 of them moved in a house next to him, right by a church, and his daughter got I'm not exactly sure what happened, but he was like one of those one candidate that I got to come out to do this. But then he started educating himself about everything. But he has a punch a pedophile campaign. His thing is we need to get rid of these people, the sex traffickers and all that. So. He doesn't hold back, but he's fair and balanced, and he has these good perspectives that aren't Christian. They're just right-thinking, conservative kind of family thing, and so it's been a good balance for the show.
Wow.
And to end with a little bit of humor, a little bit of sarcasm each show. So okay, I'm going to do a quick close, and then we're going to flip over. So here's the script for the next show. And I need to hit that, and I need to turn that off, and then
I won't be saying anything on this. right?
No.
You got it?
I'm gonna plow through it to give myself a little bit of extra time. Okay, we're back in 15. Where's my final page? There it is. Okay. Well, that's it for the Peak News today. We say the quiet stuff out loud, and I think we did today. We need to be challenged, and so nothing is sacrosanct here. The church, government, business, arts and entertainment, none of it. We need to speak truth. We need to be a light. No matter what our faith is, or if you don't consider that you have a faith. You have one, by the way. We all do. We all have a worldview, and we all operate according to it. So don't think you don't have a faith. But whatever it is, we in America are supposed to respect that. And I want to encourage you to vote, no matter what is going on. Vote, but we'll vote once. Vote in one state. Vote once. And get involved in a way that can, help our elections be fair. Because so many people have checked out because they just figure it's being stolen, or there's no reason, or the powers that are in control aren't going to allow it. Let's prove them wrong by protecting our elections. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and I take my job very seriously of watching over this nation, but I also, over this city, over this area, not the whole nation, just this little area of it, and I encourage you to join us on the Peak. Go to thepeak.news, find out more about us, be a citizen journalist, be a sponsor, be a guest, be an intern if you're a young person, and come join us here on this great citizen journalist experiment that we have here. Well, we air Monday through Thursday, so we'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to be spending some time, I'm just doing the show myself tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking about what I believe we as a country, as a region are, and how we need to do things to make a difference in a lot of different realms and not lose hope and not check out. On Friday, Dirk Hobbs and the Southern Business Forum, Colorado Business Forum and Digest is on. The ballots are arriving on Monday, so on Monday we'll be doing a show about voter guides, resources, candidates, all kinds of stuff so that you can get informed and vote your values. The Larry Elder Show is coming up next here on The Answer. Check out our 100-plus podcast at thepeak.news. The Peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud, and in our second season we're saying it even louder for such a time as this. Shalom.
Southern Colorado.
And we're going to be live again.
Yes.